If you are looking for the easiest implementation of a Minimap for your Godot ARPG, I reckon this is a pretty good place for you to start. Let's have a look. Now, if you've been following along through the whole series, you've already got this star01.png, but if you haven't, jump onto ajslearninglab.itch.io, go to the Bogan Zelda one and have a look for that. It's just working as the marker. You can make your own file here, but this is just to simplify things. You can grab that one or use it if you've already got it. We're going to need to do is actually get an image that we can use for our mini map. So given we made a tile map in our world, and I'm assuming if you haven't followed along the whole thing, you've used a tile map as well for your world. It's not quite as straightforward, but what we can do is just get rid of everything else on our screen here and just take a screenshot and we can use that. So let's get to work. Actually, we probably need to keep the world, but we can hide all these other things because they are not needed for what we are doing, right? So we just hide all of these. Brings us back to this point here. And then what we can do is we can just take a screenshot of it, right? So let's just go, actually zoom it out a little bit first. And then let's just take a screenshot of it. Just like so. There's our screenshot. We're going to use that now for our mini map. So that's going to be essentially the image that shows up in the corner. And then we've just got to plot our player onto it. So that's that step dunskies. Our image, let's turn all of these things back on so we can always see what's what. Do. What? There we go. All right, so we've got all those things turned back on. What we're going to do now is actually add that mini map into our UI. So grab our inventory node here. Now, depending on how you've set up your world, it might be a little bit different, but I've got an inventory scene and I've added that scene here. Where is it? Inventory scene. There's my inventory scene. And then in my world scene, I've just added that scene in there as a child of our player, which is a child of the tile map. So what we're going to do now, we're going to build on it. We're not going to do it in the scene. We're just going to build on it straight in our world scene, right? So we've got our inventory selected. The first thing we want to add as a child to this is our sub viewport container. So we need a container to hold our viewport that we're going to put our sprite in that's going to display the minimap. This will all make sense, hopefully, by the end of it. So we've got our sub viewport container there. What I'm going to want to do is change that to be anchored on the left, the right instead of the left, which I've done there just by changing it by going up to this little thing at the top here, clicking on that, and our anchor preset, changing it to the top left. Top right. I don't know why I keep saying the wrong thing. If we have a look in our inspector for the sub viewport container, you'll see that we can actually add or augment the size and things like that. I'm going to leave it at 40 by 40 for now, but I think we'll want that to be a bit bigger, but we'll get to that in a minute. So I'm going to reselect my sub viewport container and I'm going to add a child, which is a sub viewport, right? So now we've got a sub viewport as a child of our sub viewport container, which is a child of our inventory, which is a child of our player, which is a child of our tile map, which is a child of our world 2D node. Are you with me? Hopefully that's all making sense. So after we've got our sub viewport put in there, what we're going to do next is set that one up. So let's have a look. At the moment it's 512 by 512, which is going to take up a bit too much space. Let's make this one 40 by 40 so it matches the size of the container that we made, but we can augment that a little bit later if we feel it's a bit too small still. So now we're going to add to our sub viewport a child, which is a sprite 2D. There we go. So a sprite 2D is now a child of our sub viewport. And this is where we're going to add the image that we took. So I'm going to find that image on my desktop here. I've called it Minimap, drag that in. So that's now dragged into my file explorer here. Go and find it. What was it? Minimap. And now I'm going to drag it into our empty texture property in the inspector window for our sprite 2D. So grab the minimap, drag it across, drop it into that empty spot there. And what we also will need to do here is probably have a think about things like scale and all of that. The other thing actually that we need to make sure we're looking at is stuff like making sure our visibility is set correctly, if we need to modulate it. All of that's fine for us for now. We don't need to stress too much about it, but we just need to make sure we're paying attention to these things. One thing we do need to do is in the offset, we need to turn off the centered property. So we turn off centered, and now you see the image up in my corner here changed a little bit. If I turn it back on, it moves. There we go. So instead of it being centered, it's acting a bit differently. That's that bit. Next, we still need to add something more. So click back on our sub viewport and we're going to add a camera 2D. So this camera 2D is going to be the one that we use to essentially track our player, and then we plot that onto that sub viewport image. I hope that all makes sense. So that's the stage we needed to get to now. Let's save that, and what we're going to do next is add a script to our sub viewport. Add that script. Click on your sub viewport, click on the little add a script thingamajiggy. We can just call it sub viewport for now, it doesn't really make a difference, and open it. So we automatically extend our sub viewport. Brilliant, but we don't need any of this garbage. Let's get rid of it. What we do want is to grab a couple of onReady variables. The first one will be our camera, and that will equal just that camera that we just made. So I'm just going to drag that in there. So there's that camera 2D. And our other onReady variable is going to be our player. And we will grab our player and drag that one in there as well. All right, so that's our two variables that we want to have access to. All we're going to do now is create our physics process function. And in it, we're going to set our camera position to be equal to our player.position. Simple, right? So our camera, that's this variable here. We grabbed the reference to it, so we can just use the word camera. And then we're saying, so our camera's position here being something that's automatically worked out by Godot behind the scenes, which is lovely. We just want the camera to be in the same place as our player. Wherever our player is, we want our camera there. So we're just using our script to make that happen. So save that little bit of script, xlent. And yeah, I think our next step is we probably need to add a marker in to show where we are on that map. So let's have a look at how we would do that. Happening. We're going to click back on our sub viewport, and then we're going to add a new child, and it's again going to be a sprite, helps if I can spell, a sprite 2D node. So this one is going to be acting as a child actually of our sub viewport container, not our sub viewport. So let me just fix that up. There. So we've got a child of our sub viewport container, and we'll rename this one to be marker just so I don't get confused. And what we're going to add as the texture for this one is that star01 that we had before, right? So we just need to find that particular file. There it is there, star01.png, drop that in. The only problem being, of course, it's going to be absolutely enormous, as you can see. So we probably want to transform this way down to like 0.1 or something. And then we need to just position it smack bang in the middle of our, actually I just moved the wrong thing, didn't I? We need to position it. Where did it go? There it is, marker. All right, Mr. Marker, where are you? There. So what we want to do here is, I'm just doing this so I can make sure I pick it up correctly. We want to drop this directly in the middle of our little map up in the corner here. And then, because it's just like a bright white color, we don't want that. So we're going to then go down to our visibility and to our modulate function. And what we're going to do is just give it a red color, right? Done like that. Let's have a look at our scale. I reckon we can go even smaller. 0.05 maybe. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, I reckon that's good enough. So that's just going to show us exactly where our player is on the minimap at any given time. Remember I said you can make this bigger or smaller depending on, you know, your graphics and all that sort of stuff. So if you're going to scale your sub viewport container, your sub viewport, your sprite, just make sure you're following through and making sure you change all the things. If you just change it here, you might still need to change it here, change it there, all of that sort of stuff. But we're pretty close, believe it or not, to actually giving this a test. So let's save what we've done and see if we're ready for that. Give it a test. I reckon we're going to need to change the size of it, but we'll just go and find out. So we start it, we choose our character, Bazza or Shazza, whoever you want. It's up there, it's working, but I'm sure you agree it's probably a bit small considering. So let's go back out and let's have a tinker with the size. So we'll go to our sub viewport container. Let's change this to maybe 100 by 100. We'll need to relocate it so it's in the right spot. There we go. Now we need to also make sure we change all the other things, right? And our sprite, make sure that's the correct size. Actually, we probably don't need to. Sub viewport. There we go. All right. That is a bit better, but I think our scale might still need to change too. So I'm going to go to our camera and I'm going to just change our zoom here, maybe to 0.5, something like that. Is that what I need to do, or do I need to check? I'm not sure. Let's just play. See if we're happy with it. Bazaar! All right, so that looks much better. The scale seems better. Get rid of that Maggie. Let's make sure my thong still works. Got him, yes. All right, I reckon we're pretty much done here. Oh, hang on. I'm noticing something. My marker is, of course, no longer in the right place because I moved everything else, but not that. So let's go back out. Let's grab our marker and let's just bring him into the middle there. Nice. All right, save it. Give it another test to make sure she's all sweet. Bazaar. Yep, and we have our marker. Killing magpies is what I do. All right, excellent. I am super stoked. Hopefully that is enough to get you moving. Let's have a look at our must, may, might. So there'll be a few things in there that you can do to customize this. So to make that happen for you, you need to add a sub-viewport container, sub-viewport, sprite 2D, and camera 2D to your scene for your map, as well as creating the script for the sub-viewport. Don't forget you also need an image of your map. What you might like to do is add the extra sprite 2D in there for the marker. It's not necessary, but I think it makes it work a bit better. And what you may think about doing, what you might think about doing is working out how to have your minimap modulate at night, just like the tile map does. Have a think about how to achieve that. If you've achieved all that, your Bogan now basically has his own GPS. Now, I am aware I said the next video would be guilds last time, but I got distracted with the minimap. I will endeavour to get a guild video up there. And the quote of the week brought to you by my own iOS app Quotebook, which is completely free to use and download. This one is from Anne Frank, and she said, "How wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world." Thanks, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.